All right, thank you, and welcome back to the podcast. In this episode, we're going to talk about the Detroit Grand Prix. And my guest is Letty Azar. She's the VP of Communication of Government Affairs with Penske. And we talk about the kind of like the evolution of the Detroit Grand Prix. And then we also talk about some of their social justice, how they have their hands in social justice, in particular, making sure that members of the Black Business Association supporting entrepreneurs, so the BBASE, um, is able to participate since as vendors. And so making sure that Black business owners and entrepreneurs in particular have scholarships or whatever they need so that they can also be fully represented as part of the Detroit Grand Prix. And then Letty Azar is also a board member with the Pope Francis Center. So if you listen to episode 4, you probably heard me mention that. And we talk a little bit more about that as well in this episode. Anyway, I learned all kinds of things about the Grand Prix that I had never knew. So I suspect you will as well. And if you don't already know, we host a checkered flag mass that weekend. So this year it'll be on May 31st at 6 o'clock. We have to time our mass for that weekend in between the roaring of the engines, right? Since the track literally goes right across or right in front of the doors of Saints Peter and Paul Jesuit Church. So anyway, lots of good information in this episode. I think you're going to like Letty. She was just fun to hang out with for a few minutes and get to know. So we hope that you will enjoy the episode and that you will share it with a friend. Thanks. You've been with Penske for a while, right?
Actually, I've been here 4 years now, and I'll probably remain the rookie on the team for another 20. The company doesn't, we have a lot of longevity, and I was really flattered to become a part of the team.
Wow. So now, where were you before that?
Yeah, so I have an interesting career path over here to automotive and racing. I spent 25, almost 30 years in healthcare. I'm actually a counselor by background. So I started as a nursing assistant and then clinician, eventually moved into operations, became very frustrated by the regulatory and reimbursement environment. And that's really when I started to focus more on policy and government affairs. So towards the end of my healthcare career, worked with now Mayor Duggan on some government affairs pieces, really became an admirer of his leadership and skill set. So when he ran for mayor, I joined the campaign team, and followed him into office. So left healthcare, took a turn in the municipal barrel, if you will. And that's when I started working more closely with Penske Corporation, kind of became a liaison, if you will, to the company with some of their community investments, and developed a really profound respect and interest in how this company moves and operates. It's very entrepreneurial in spirit, kind of an outlier just in how it's structured. So I left Mayor's administration and moved over here to Penske Corporation as Vice President of Community and Government Affairs, and have never regretted it. So
Is that Penske was more entrepreneurial in the way they structure their business.
yeah, so we're an enormous company, 72,000 employees worldwide. We own and operate almost 500 auto dealerships across the globe, and have the world's largest trucking fleet. We have just shy of 500,000 trucks on the road in North America at any given time at over 1,800 locations. So we retail commercial trucks, we rent commercial trucks, we maintain commercial trucks. And so those are probably the two biggest components of our business. But despite our size, we still, we just move in a very entrepreneurial, bold, forward-thinking manner. And that was just so interesting to me, that you have this global giant that again moves as swiftly and efficiently as we do. So Yeah, I love the team. Now, I talked about the dealerships and trucking and various other companies that fall under the Penske umbrella. But of course, with regards to downtown, most people hear Penske and they think about the Chevrolet Detroit Grand Prix presented by Lear. In 2020, Roger purchased the NTT IndyCar Series. We've had the Team Penske Racing for well over 50 years, I think pushing 70 at this point. I'm not sure, you might want to edit that part out. I don't know that it is almost 70. I know we're over 50. So, but in 2020, we purchased the NTT IndyCar Series. Along with that came, of course, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Indy 500. And now there are a series of other events on our schedule that our team hosts around the country. We just acquired the Grand Prix of Long Beach. We're kicking off a joint venture with the Cowboys and the Rangers in Arlington, and next year running, excuse me, an inaugural Grand Prix for the Grand Prix of Arlington. Nashville, we have an event we're promoting now in Nashville, Iowa, and some others that are soon to be announced. So it's a really exciting time. Things are very fast moving, no pun intended. So yeah, that's probably more than you asked for there. But I think when people in Detroit hear the Penske name, that's their immediate thought is the Grand Prix.
Yeah. And now I was reading in your bio and you talked about you had a role in bringing it back downtown. So how did it start? And then did it move out of downtown? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so the race started in 1982 as a street race downtown. The course was significantly larger than the track that we have today, and that it ran north of Jefferson. And that is relevant here a little later in my explanation. But so it started in 82 as a Formula One race through 88. At that time, Formula One left. They weren't a huge fan of our bumpy roads in Detroit. CART came in. CART is now what we know as IndyCar. CART came in and it ran as a kart race then until 1991. In 1991, it then moved to Belle Isle. And the reason for that move was, well, fans loved a downtown track, and there's truly nothing that rivals the energy, the sounds, the noise, the excitement of a downtown race. Business owners downtown really did not like the disruption. South of Jefferson, there's less to disrupt. North of Jefferson, even in 91 was still our central business district, right? And everything was alive and well. And in order just to have like one block of Larned on the track, you had to then shut down 4 blocks of Larned and a couple of blocks of Beaubien. And so it was just so disruptive. It kind of paralyzed downtown businesses. So business owners said, that's great that fans love it. Take it someplace else. We're sick of the disruption. So in fact, the then owner of the race, which was not Penske at the time, moved it to Belle Isle. It ran on Belle Isle then 92 to about 2000, 2001, and it idled. And it was idled for 3 or 4 years. And with the Super Bowl in 2006, there was a big push to encourage Roger to buy the Grand Prix, similar to the draft last year, right? The world's eyes were on Detroit. And someone said, hey, why don't we get the Grand Prix up and running again? Roger's the perfect person, president of Penske Racing, one of the winningest teams in motorsports. So Roger purchased the Detroit Grand Prix. Then 2007 was the first time it ran on Belle Isle under Penske leadership. Had to idle for a bit because of the auto recession. B2B and automotive sponsors, obviously promoting the Grand Prix was not a huge priority at the time, understandably so. So in 2012, it fired back up on Belle Isle and then ran through 2022 when we moved it back downtown. And the impetus for moving it back downtown, there were a couple of pieces. One, programmatically, there were changes we wanted to make to the race. I mean, and especially with the temporary street circuit, they're built to change, whether that's programming or the track itself. But there were things we wanted to do differently, and Belle Isle had limitations to that. It had kind of run its course, no pun intended, on Belle Isle. And but really the impetus to do it so quickly, the decision was made in 21 to move it back downtown, was we had an inaugural race in Nashville. And keep in mind, this is on the heels of COVID, right? And downtown businesses were really struggling, not just here in Detroit, but around the country. And so we run this inaugural race in September of 2021 in Nashville, and the small businesses just came to life. and they were so grateful, for fans. Our fans travel. We have a strong regional pull, not necessarily a hyper local pull like you'll see with stick and ball sports. They travel with big wallets and they travel with big groups. And so downtown Nashville businesses were really happy to see our fan base. And we thought, man, if we can do this in Detroit, let's do it sooner than later, because certainly the downtown economy could utilize the infusion. So we made the decision to move it very, very quickly. It was about 18 months time from council approval to building out this event and making the move from Belle Isle to downtown. But we had to, figure out a track, right? And so our president, our race president, Michael Montry, and chairman Bud Denker, they walked all different perspective courses around the city of Detroit and really landed on this south of Jefferson only track. It pulls in that feeling and that energy, with downtown buildings. It gives it that true downtown vibe. But because we weren't running north of Jefferson, it lifted up. There's 280 businesses within walking distance with a 15-minute walk of our track. And that's amazing. And so we knew if we built this right, if we kept the traffic disruption south of Jefferson, it would, and nobody's walking from the river, right? So people are coming to the track from north up and they're walking by all of those businesses. That if we built this right, we could really have a positive impact on downtown economy, not just to kickstart on the heels of COVID, but hopefully to make this a more sustainable race and avoid some of the pitfalls it had seen through the years.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because the track is walking distance to Eastern Market, right?
Yep, Eastern Market. You can drop down the DeQuinder Cut to get us from Eastern Market. It's walking distance. You've got the Q line that drops off right there. It stops at Campus Marsh this race weekend, so you can take the Q line in from New Center. 375 remains open, so you can jump off 375 to any number of parking areas and take in a nice day downtown, grab brunch, and you're still at the track in time for the green flag. And the lodge remains open as well. So it's pretty easy to access any of the downtown parking, and a quick walk or people ride or Q line ride or a bike ride.
About what's happened in these first 4 years, really, because you were coming out of COVID. So now we're 5 years out of COVID. So a lot of things have changed.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of businesses and organizations are able to start. So what are some of the changes, additions that are coming with the Grand Prix, maybe this year or in a couple of years thinking out?
Yeah, so when we moved downtown, we ran the first time in 2023, and we were really intentional about kind of doing this with the community and not to the community, right? And building this programmatically, focusing beyond the track, right, out into each of the respective city council districts and then the region. What did people really want to see with this event? So we formed what we called community partnerships, and we have some very generous corporate donors who came to support our community outreach and programming. And I'll touch on that, in addition to really helping downtown businesses learn to activate around the race. So to your point, coming out of COVID, 23, businesses were still struggling with staffing. Even though it's just 2 years ago, they're still really struggling with staffing. So some of them said, listen, as much as we want to capitalize on the Grand Prix, we don't think we can staff for it. So a couple of them, just more than a couple of businesses, said, I don't know that we can even, staff up respectively. Said, we're not sure that we could staff up for regular operations, but happy to then host larger groups. And so we tried to work with downtown businesses to make sure that they could maximize the opportunity around the business, and what that looked like first year versus second year. And now third year are completely different, right? Now everyone's, for the most part, fully staffed. I mean, every business has staffing problems from time to time, but I don't think we see that COVID crunch that we saw in 2023. And so what we have spent a lot of time doing is each year kind of modifying how we work with downtown businesses to make sure they're staffed at the right time. When are our fans leaving the track hungry and, wanting to feed a family of four? Don't staff up at noon, because that's when everyone's in their grandstand seats. Staff up at 4 p.m. when the race is over, making sure that hotel valets are ready when there's a big rush of people wanting to leave the hotel. So we make sure that collectively we all put our best foot forward to create a really positive guest experience downtown. And certainly it hasn't come without its issues, right? We've stubbed our toe. Um, and when I say that, I mean collectively, right? You always look at last year and what you could have done better. But I think each year we've really refined this and gotten better and stronger. I know last year, about 30 minutes after the checkered flag dropped, so checkered flags when the race ends, and checkered flag dropped, and about half an hour in, so we're still in the middle of the celebration and in Victory Lane, right, and confetti and the whole 9 yards. And my phone rings, and it's one of our downtown bar and restaurant owners, and I thought, oh no, like, did we do something? Did we break a piece of concrete, moving something? What happened? And he was calling to thank us. And he said it was the best weekend his business had experienced since pre-COVID. It was his best weekend post-COVID. And he said, you taught us how to work with a major event. Other events haven't done that. So that was great. And so each year, again, we're starting, because I want 4 of those phone calls. I had 1 last year. I want 4 of them after the checkered flag this year. And next year I want 10 of them. We don't need thank yous, but it's always good to hear that, like, okay, we found something that works. How do we build on those successes to make it better year to year? So a lot of work with local businesses on that front. And then with the community, again, first year downtown 23, we formed this community partnership with a huge focus on arts and entrepreneurship, youth enrichment, and small businesses outside of downtown. So we have so many business corridors outside of city center in Detroit that say, we never know when big events are coming to town, and we have people staying in some of our neighborhoods and Airbnbs. It's like, how do we activate a shuttle so that we can have some Grand Prix parties here, and then we just shuttle people down to the race, things like that. How do we activate around the race, and then how can we have a stronger role race weekend? And so we created Small Business Straightaway, where we invite for free entrepreneurs down to the track and small businesses from the neighborhood. And so we underwrite the cost of their activation fee, and there's no revenue share with their goods sold, which is a very, we underwrite a lot of costs to do that, but we think it's a great way to show off Detroit neighborhoods, right? So if you're coming in from out of town, and I don't care if that's Shelby Township or San Antonio, Texas, you come in and you go to the District 1 tent, and you're going to meet vendors and business corridors in District 1. And maybe that night you head out then for, dinner in the Old Redford corridor. So we've had great success with the Small Business Straightaway, but each year we've kind of tried to make that a little better and stronger. And so this year in 2025, we're providing scholarships to the Michigan Black Business Alliance. We have a number of businesses that have applied for the Small Business Straightaway that don't necessarily make sense for a motorsport event, right? We don't want to invite you to activate at the track and you have a bad experience. If your product just doesn't make sense and we don't think our fans are going to spend money on it. But we've really met some just brilliant, motivated entrepreneurs, and we want to help them grow. And the fact that they keep reaching out to us says, they want to find a new way. They want to focus on product placement. They want to expand their marketing skills. So we're providing scholarships to businesses this year, in addition to activating at Small Business Straightaway to work with the Michigan Black Business Alliance, who they have an amazing mentoring program. There's a lot of businesses can glean. So that's one of the changes, we've made to some of the programming in the race. And then our youth enrichment really has turned into a career development arm year round. And that is everything from culinary students. We sponsor the Bright Hop Culinary competition team, and then they are employed as interns race weekend. We have a motorsport correspondent program. There aren't many motorsport journalists around anymore. And what better place to grow them than here in the Motor City with the NTT IndyCar Series and the Detroit Grand Prix. And so we started a motorsport correspondent program this year through Boys and Girls Club industry clubs. It's a paid internship, graphic design, and kind of the list goes on. So each year we've layered on a new career development program. And then our art initiatives just continue on, and we try to take a different approach each year to keep it interesting and keep it fresh. So I'm really proud of that community partnership. Now, from a track perspective and a competition perspective, people always ask, like how bumpy is it? Or they'll see where we had a number of crashes first year. How did we change that second year? So each year, we have had different things to address on the track. And that's kind of the nature of a temporary street circuit. You don't know what's changing underground, sometimes even just depending on temperatures, right, throughout the season. You have heaving in different places and you have to mill it down. So we do a LiDAR scan. People are always fascinated by this. How do you test a track that is only alive for 3 days out of the year? Then how do you know that the modifications you make work? And so what we do is we make the modifications we believe we need for the track to be safe and competitive. We want it to be competitive. We want teams to come back year after year. And so we do a LiDAR scan, and then we have drivers drive the track in a simulator. And those simulators are so specific that a driver can tell us, when I'm heading into turn 8, I feel a funny vibration on the inside of the turn. Take a look at it. It's a little bumpy. Or, I bottomed out coming out of blah, blah, blah turn, right? And I could feel the car bottom out. Take a look at that. And so each year we've got to make some modifications, and that's based on the LiDAR scans. So, yeah, and then, movement of traffic, things like that. Every year we try to get a little better, a little stronger.
Yeah. So this year you have some competition with the I-375 project. So, yeah, where I'm at, right now, St. Antoine and Larded are under construction, which are 2 of the 3 sides of.
You're surrounded.
So how do you, there's a lot of construction. Everybody makes a joke, right? There's 2 seasons in Michigan, winter and construction, right?
Yeah.
So how do you make that happen? Because they got to be done by, May's coming.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So, communication is the key to a happy marriage. And even without construction, we're in constant discussions with MDOT and DDOT, the city and state, and our federal partners, right? Because we have an international border that empties to the interior of this track, and that's the Detroit-Windsor Tunnel. So we communicate with our partners year-round, and they adjust and we adjust our timelines to support each other's efforts. And MDOT knows when they'll kind of idle their construction and pull up their orange barriers and put them down in a different area to direct our traffic. But yeah, so we work together, and yeah, it's gonna be a long few years as the 375 project evolves. And we have a question mark with the Rensen and some of that development. But, it's the beauty of a temporary street circuit. It's designed to change and to move. And so if we need to make modifications, we will. And we will need to make modifications. So we're just kind of taking it 1 year at a time, but we are in lockstep with our partners, and the communication with the city and the state and related entities has really been incredible and very supportive. So,
yeah. Oh, that's great. And there's a lot of moving parts. That's really interesting how, man, you just have so many. I'd love to see your spreadsheet, right? Like how you make sure all the pieces are fitting together. Now you have another connection. Obviously, we're both in Detroit, but you have another connection with us because you're now on the board of the Pope Francis Center, right?
Yes, they do amazing work. Father Tim is just so inspiring, right? He just inspires you to do better and be a better human. And it was a no-brainer for me to give back of some of my time and in our corporate resources to help that organization become stronger and serve more. So they were one of the first phone calls we made when we decided to return the race to the streets of downtown because of the day center, which cohabitates there with you at Saints Peter and Paul. And we wanted to make sure that we didn't disrupt their ability to provide services. And so whatever we needed to do to make modifications so they could still provide, and it really was Thursday, Friday was the big concern. But anyway, we were able to work it out and no disruption of services. And in fact, we kind of developed this really profound respect and excitement around what Father Tim was trying to do with the Bridging Housing campus, and which of course now is open and full, which is crazy. I feel like we just broke ground on it. So Yeah, I'm really proud on personally and professional note to be a part of the sacred work that Father Tim does and help guide the mission. And we're really lucky to have, I think you take it for granted, right, when it's in your backyard, how fortunate you are to have certain programming. But what Father Tim is doing is it's just a remarkable and unique model that was built on best practices from around the country. And the fact that we have that here within our ecosystem, our support for the unsheltered here in Detroit, we're really blessed. We're really fortunate.
Yeah, it's been great. To just in my short time here is to see, how we're um, engaging the marginalized people groups, and to, help bring back dignity, So
Yeah, they've done a remarkable job in, as you know, it's not a huge space that they utilize for the day center, but bringing resources and services for a very targeted window of time, right? It's just a few hours a day, but that our unsheltered or housing unstable population in Detroit knows that you can get a meal, you can wash clothes, you can get dental services and podiatry and medical, and they just people know that they're covered. That as long as they can get to the door of Saints Peter and Paul, they know that they're covered. And it sounds easy if you've not worked in that system. I have, and it's not easy. It is a Herculean lift. But Father Tim and company make it look easy.
yeah,
So it's really pretty impressive what they pulled together in a short time.
new projects on the horizon, but like you pretty much just have one project. So
Yeah,
um,
I think, as far as new projects with the Grand Prix, again, it's going to be constantly communicating and watching what's going on with the Renson redevelopment and what modifications we might have to make related to that in the 375 project. And then also responding to the needs of the community. Each year we have an advisory group of 9 people where we kind of reevaluate, are we on the right track? Are we building on the right successes? Are there things we just need to maybe scrap and start over? So we're constantly evolving, and I think that's a big part of who we are as a company, even outside of the Grand Prix and the IndyCar series. But I'm very excited that this race has been the inspiration for other programming around the country with other motorsport events. So that's always a point of pride for us here locally to know that we provide inspiration elsewhere.
it's cool. Well, I'm looking forward to it. This will be my first time, you know, being here and engaging the Grand Prix in this aspect, in my role as operations director and working with you. So I'm looking forward to experiencing it in a different way for the first time. So
I love following up with people after they've experienced the first motorsport event, period, but certainly a true downtown street race is just, there is nothing like it. So I can't wait for you and I to speak. I mean, obviously, I'll see you between now and then, but I can't wait for our first discussion on the heels of the Grand Prix. And I think, too, just if I can give a shameless plug here, people ask, where can I learn more about IndyCar or motorsports? When I come to the race, I know kind of what I'm looking at. And 2 things. One, we are televised on Fox. You can follow the NTT IndyCar series on Fox Sports. And so, check us out on our website, and you'll know when and where we're racing and when you can watch us. And then the other is we have a 3rd season launching of 100 Days to Indy. It's a hard knock style documentary of, kind of week to week. It's a week look back. And it is, in fact, the 100 days leading up to the Indy 500. So this season airs, I believe, April 27th. It kicks off. And we have 2 seasons streaming also on Netflix right now. The last 2 seasons are on Netflix. So if you want to binge watch 100 Days to Indy, each season's only 6 episodes, but it is a great way to get a glimpse into IndyCar, who we are, and hopefully you'll have a favorite driver picked out by the time they get here in Detroit.
that's fun. So that's cool. And I'll make sure you do have a website. You have the Detroit Grand Prix website. So
Yep,
people can go there and check it out.
Yep.
Yeah. And they can keep an eye on the schedule. You're updating it as you go. I think
We
most of
do.
it's on there. Yeah. Yeah.
It is. Yep. We're updating it. We finally have our competition and event schedule somewhat nailed down. There's always some last minute pieces, but we do have an event schedule posted at DetroitGP.com. Tickets, of course, are for sale at DetroitGP.com. As a reminder to any of your listeners that this event is open for free public viewing. So Hart Plaza is open for free. We have free concerts on Saturday night in Campus Martius. The displays are all open for free. The only thing you need a ticket for is our hospitality suite and grandstands, but otherwise free public viewing and fan experience. So do look forward to seeing you race weekend and certainly before, and invite any of your listeners to the checkered flag mass and
Yeah.
and to see everyone race weekend. So thank you.